Good morning, Facebook friends. Helen Archontou here, CEO of the YWCA of Northern New Jersey. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am so happy to have some time with you today on this Thursday. We are getting chillier outside. We are slowly getting to more and more holiday stress a lot of folks are feeling, but it's important to take a little bit of time for some inspiring conversation. And so I'm grateful that you've joined us today. We have another great interview for you. As those of you who are regulars on YWTV know that on Thursdays is when we share the mic now with Black women in our community to share their stories. And I am so grateful to every one of them who have come on and so generously shared theirs. And today, we have Shay Davis with us, who is the owner of Butta's Holistic Services, a wife, a mother of three, and a certified full spectrum doula. We're so grateful that she could make the time. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for making the time and having me here.
So for our viewers, I want to tell you a little bit more. Although she goes by Shay, her name is Chena. And she, as I said, is the owner of Butta's Holistic Service. Her love for birth work and holistic health came through her culturally diverse upbringing here in New Jersey. She's upbringing. She's a New Jersey native, but she was raised in St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and her family is Guyanese heritage. She is a product of a teen pregnancy herself, and becoming a mom at 20 years old. Life threw her full force into the role of advocate and support person for teen moms and moms of color within her community. She wholeheartedly believes that knowledge of self is key in reducing carelessness within our lives. If we understand who we are and how our body is to function, we make space for education, change, and healing. She believes in holistic care, incorporating the mind, body, spirit of her clients to achieve an optimal experience in pregnancy. As I said, she was raised in St. Croix, where the minority is the majority, and she feels very strongly about fair care for our Black and Brown families. I'm taking it back to the village mentality. It takes a village to raise a child. And it takes a village to nourish a birthing person in mind, body, and spirit so that she is able to nourish and provide for the child. What a tremendous opportunity we have today to learn from you. And I'm so grateful again that you could make the time. So welcome again. And I would love for you to just, a lot of people may know what a doula is, but some people still may not because it's a concept depending on what circle you're in, whether or not you've been exposed to it. So before we get too far into your story and your work, I'd love for you to explain that piece because I think it's important for people to know.
Definitely. And you're right. I get the half and half now. When I started 6 years ago, it was like, what's a doula? Now it's not like, what's a doula? It's like, I know one of those. And that's like everybody's introduction. And so they're starting to learn more. But a doula is a support person, a support coach. I am full spectrum. So I work with women in fertility, pregnancy, and postpartum. And so that means kind of coaching them through what to expect, advocating for them, being present for them in their different phases of fertility, pregnancy, labor, postpartum. So we're like, the best friend of the birthing person. We're your personal Google. We give you the information that pertains to your experience. Lets women know their rights within the birthing space, and really just big advocates for reproductive justice and making sure that they are given fair care as they are laboring and in this susceptible, phase of their life.
I mean, as someone who has given birth, all I can say is what a gift it is to be able to have someone with the level of knowledge and experience in birthing to kind of be alongside of you for the process. For many of us, when we do end up in this space, either it's our first time or it's what we do know is each time is different too. So it's almost like the first time all over again. And you know, although you have doctors and family members, they're all focused on different pieces, and the doula is really focused on the mom,
Mhm.
and all that comes with what's changing
Yeah.
and happening. So I love that this is becoming more known, and more accessible. But access is definitely one of the things we want to talk about because it's not accessible for all still, and that's one of the pieces we definitely want to get to in this conversation. But before we jump there, tell us a little bit about your upbringing
Yes.
and what and how you personally bring that into your experience of your work.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had a pretty great upbringing, I could say. I didn't really know about or like deal with racism much the way that society does now, the way that a Black woman does now. So I was born in New Jersey and I moved to St. Croix when I was about 7 or 8. And I lived in St. Croix until I was 17. And just living there, one of my most favorite things to do was one, of course, being outside and being in nature, but really learning about the different things that were on island. Like everything was accessible to you outdoors. Like you could schooling, our classrooms were like open and outdoors. We could spend all day in class talking about this tree that's sitting right here next to us. Like there was always an opportunity for like learning and growth. And that was my favorite thing because I'm a busybody. I'm a curious mind, and even more so, of course, when I was a kid. Right now, I could tailor it, but as a child, I was all over the place. So I got to have a lot of learning experience. But what I could say really propelled me into just the woman that I am now is my education. And it was really rooted. I went to private school, but pride is a big thing on the island. And so we had a lot of cultural pride. And so understanding our history is a must. It's like we know, of course, our history even more than we may know the US history or the British, the UK history as we're going through this climate right now of change. And so there's like the banned book list, right, for Black people. Really, it's
Mm.
usually books by authors of Black background that
Right.
are no longer allowed in schools. But those were the books we had to read. Like we had to read The Bluest Eye. We had to speak about Huey P. Newton and know who the Black Panthers were. Like it was very ingrained in Black culture, and not just Black American culture, but Black history, African history, and just how there's the variations thereof. So fast forward to coming here to the States and coming to the mainlands, it was very strange for me to see how disconnected
Yeah.
um, a lot of people were, and not just people of color, but everybody. We kind of just all fell into this mold. And we didn't know we eat certain foods. We don't know why we eat these foods or why we do this. And it's just something I wasn't used to. And so my journey to becoming a doula really started with educating myself on what care is like here in the US and who do you go to here because we don't go to the doctors in St. Croix. Like our community are our doctors, the aunties are the doctors, the grandmother, the little lady who's selling things from in her house are the doctors. So it was a bit of a culture shock, but it was a great way to relearn myself in pregnancy. So there were some dark periods of pregnancy for me, but I could say that it was enjoyable because it was really um, a way to tap into myself and what I really knew to be true for myself and who I was. I was 19 when I got pregnant. I showed up at the doctor's office. I chose the best doctor that I could find in the area. I'm in Bergen County, which is a very well off area in comparison to many others within New Jersey and even, coming from St. Croix. And so I felt like that was it. Okay, I have the perfect doctor. And even in going there, I was like, she doesn't even know about me or understand me and my culture and things. And I'm like, what kind of doctor is this? She doesn't even ask me questions. So really just diving deep into who I was in pregnancy, going back to my roots is what caused me to become the doula I am and kind of stay true to who I am as a doula within the community. Um, so grateful for that upbringing.
Yes, for sure. And I really appreciate what you shared about growing up, how, Black culture and Black history were really integrated into your learning. I mean, we know that, here in this country, it's absent, from our education system. And, it really, really is something that, we need to advocate and make a shift and change because, um, you know, it's clear from talking with you that a lot of you're so rooted and your self-esteem is so ingrained because you had that, at the core that grew up with. And,
Mhm.
children are missing that, when they're growing up in this country because it's not part of their experience in a formal education way. They may be getting it, they may or may not be getting it in other ways, right? But it's clearly so, so very important. So I appreciate you sharing that and just wanted to remind our viewers that that is, part of the work that we need to do collectively as a country and as an organization that we're, focused on is advocating and making those changes in our education system and the importance of that. Because here's a living example of, a very positive product of, being able to grow up with that.
Yeah.
So I also, love what you just shared too, because it really is so eye-opening about, your own experience going to the doctor and feeling like, they're caring for you, but they don't know anything about you. And, that is such a narrative of our healthcare system here in this country for sure. And, you know, having that experience, that connection, that relationship really does make a difference. And I think what we know, and we know from this platform, we've had so many women come speak in this space about, Black women that when they've gone to the traditional healthcare system to talk about, fill in the blank with the, medical reason,
Yeah.
that brought them there, that the system was not open to hearing or understanding or acknowledging what they were sharing and just kind of cookie cutter responding to them, and quite frankly from a systemic racism perspective really with blinders on in terms of what was needed versus their own implicit bias and their perceptions that were being put on the women that were coming forward in this space. So I that also makes a real case for the importance of this kind of relationship,
Mhm.
because it is so personal and really does create a space at dealing with someone as a unique being.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and I say the whole being, and that's where the holistic part for me comes in, right? We're looking at the whole person, and that goes deeper than, of course, I am here and I advocate and I am strongly standing firm for my women of color. But, sometimes even the thought when you think women of color, they think, okay, Black woman. But there are so many variations thereof, right? Is it a Black American? Is it a Caribbean American? Is it, a
Right.
West Indian? And even in those pockets, there's differences of culture. And it's being met with fear when they are entering medical spaces, right? And it's being like we're throwing the culture away a little bit. You go to the doc. Okay, and I'm a Caribbean woman. I'm first generation American. My mother and my grandmother, my maternal side, they're from Guyana, and so we have some Guyanese things that we do drink, eat that all go around pregnancy and labor and postpartum. Now, if I'm taking that to the medical space and I'm saying, it's like, oh, how are you eating? Oh yeah, I'm drinking my barley water every day. Barley water, you don't need that. You could just, drink. And so now it's like, oh, I don't need to drink this, but you know, this is for it helps, it's a blood nourisher. It helps with hydration. It helps me bring in more breast milk.
Mm.
So I don't need to drink that. What should I drink? And then it's not even really met or interjected with more advice. It's just like, yeah, you don't have to do that. You can just, and so, and the way that I see it and the way that a lot of my clients see it is you're telling me to throw away what I know for What can you offer me? And so a lot of women are, especially in postpartum, and especially in pregnancy, it's a lot going on. So being told, you don't need to do this, you don't need that, that's not a thing, we don't do that here, or any of that, it leaves gaps. It leaves gaps for self-care, it leaves gaps in communication, and I don't feel I can trust this provider with more intimate details because they're telling me I don't need, something that is very culturally important to me that my mother, my grandmother, everybody's done before me. They're just telling me throw that away and here, drink, take this prenatal vitamin.
Mhm.
These are the generic vitamins that we get in bulk here at the medical office. These are great. Take them. You don't even know that, honestly, doctor, in comparison to what I'm taking. Maybe asking me, "Can I see what you're taking, or can I understand what it is?" Write down, even if you were to pull out a notepad and say, "Oh, okay, she's drinking barley water. I'm gonna look into that." And coming back like, "Oh, I looked into that, and you know what? You should keep drinking it." Just showing a little bit, of openness, for culturally diverse persons would really set a tone that I feel is it's like so achievable and yet it's not. Like it's one small thing and yet it's like so far away. So yeah, these are some of the systematic racist things that you don't realize that are kind of ingrained. Think twice before you tell somebody you don't need to do that. Oh, you're breastfeeding your child over 7 months. They don't need that anymore.
Well,
Mhm.
I'm so grateful that you're sharing that and, for our viewers, to be thinking about, again, just to not feel discounted for any of our viewers of color, especially who are, having that medical relationship, not to feel discounted if something that you are bringing culturally into the space is not accepted.
Yeah.
Um, and, um, you know, obviously here in New Jersey, we are, have an urgent crisis in terms of, um, maternal infant
Mortality.
mortality rates for our, Black and Brown communities for sure. We have been identified as one of the highest rates of um, death in childcare, childbirth. Um,
Mhm.
and it is a significant concern that we should all be focused on. I know that our First Lady Tammy Murphy has made it a priority. While she's been uh, connected, in the administration, to focus on it. We've got some wonderful friends that I know we both have of, Jay at Melanated Moms. They're doing so much great work.
Mm,
Um, our Marikel, who's over at New Jersey Maternal Health. I mean, there's so much great work happening, and
mhm.
wonderful that you're part of that landscape. Can you talk a little bit about that crisis, though, for anyone who maybe is not aware of it, and especially maybe folks that look like me, who it's not their experience, so they wouldn't even understand it, but they should understand it, and they should also understand, that they should be advocating to those that we have in office to be putting funding and legislation in place to be changing the systems to, you know, change this horrific statistic.
Mhm. Yeah, so, a woman of color, specifically a Black woman in America, in New Jersey, the state of New Jersey right now is 3 times more likely to die than our white counterpart. And it's not just the mothers, unfortunately, who are dying, and it's not just in childbirth, but it is, you started to mention, it's in postpartum too. Um, it's not to say that the care given right then and there is good enough that they are going to survive to postpartum. Unfortunately, it's happening up to a month prior that are a month postpartum that our Black women are dying. Our Latino moms are 2 times more likely to die in childbirth and postpartum than white counterparts. And then our babies are at risk, unfortunately, as well. And so right now in the state of New Jersey is number 47, if memory serves correctly, of the 50 states, with Black maternal death, um, disparities at this point. So we're dealing with a lot. And if we get more specific and go kind of into the dynamics, Trenton, New Jersey, right now is a maternal health desert. They do not have the necessary maternal care in that area. They don't even have a hospital um, in the area. And so they have higher numbers within the state of maternal deaths and fetal deaths as well. So just putting into perspective, and that's our capital. Trenton, Trenton is our capital. And this is what's happening in the capital of our state. So that I don't know how much more perspective you can give than looking at the numbers that way and seeing how we desperately need change. There's no way
Yeah.
around it.
So, for those that, are watching today and learning about this, what are some ways that they can actively be part of that change? Um, what can we do from your perspective? What should we be doing?
Mhm. Um, Definitely giving resources, making space for communities of color.
Mm,
We are unfortunately being pushed out, and this and we say we, unfortunately, Black people do fall in the low class, middle class, and if we know anything right now within New Jersey in multiple places, middle class and low class are really being pushed out of these areas. And so care is not as easily accessible, and even more so if you're a mom of color. So just making space, taking the trainings. If you're a medical professional, please. I was at a conference, and this hospital was to take a implicit bias training and um, a cultural awareness training, and the admin of the hospital admitted that it was met with disdain. A lot of staff, nurses, doctors did not want to take this training. Why? What could it hurt? So, making these trainings mandatory, making sure that they understand why. I also feel like, unfortunately, nurses aren't fully understanding why these trainings are necessary or what these numbers are. I've been told in the hospital, when I go to the hospital, of course, I'm a doula of color, but I wear a Black Mamas Matter pin, a Black Mamas Matter shirt, things like that. And I've had a nurse kind of look at my pin and look me in the face and go, well, all lives matter. We don't see color here. And if you could sit there and say that, and yet you know the numbers, there's a disconnect. Either you don't know the numbers or you have some soul searching to do.
yeah.
And so just being more aware and making sure that nurses, staff, they understand the real fears that women are having coming into these birthing spaces, coming into these medical spaces. Just make a little space for us, be a little softer for us if you can, because it shows that you can be, based off of the statistics. But there's something that's happening when you see my brown face sitting in a hospital bed that is happening differently than when you see, than if somebody sees you sitting in a hospital bed. So really being able to check those biases.
Well, that's clearly something that we believe as well at the YWCA. And, we want all to understand this issue again, because you have a role, those of you that are watching, to, this is a conversation that you can share, whether or not you're personally, impacted by it. We are all impacted by it, whether it's happening to you. The numbers of, again, this is an epic proportion, and definitely a crisis for sure. And I also want to say, as we've seen in the last few months in this country, the national policy shift, and you noted how reproductive justice was one of the areas that doulas, focus. It makes sense. We know that the dismantling of Roe versus Wade is specifically and much more impactful to communities of color than it is for white communities. It's again a tragedy for all, where this has headed. But it's important to be educated and to understand the impact and how it's impacting different groups differently.
Definitely. Yeah. And even when it comes to schooling and education wise, can we have more nurses of color? It's not to say that they're not out there, but maybe making sure again that there are space for them in these places, um,
Mhm,
because that's who we're looking for. Um, I can say that in my work, I've definitely gotten to speak with, and learn more about politics and the politicians. And even now in this climate, more politicians, senators, they're speaking up about this. But I just want to say, like, don't let it be a, look, when we say this in the doula culture, but don't let it be a flavor of the month.
mhm.
Right? Keep doing the work. It was just voting time, right? We're still
Right.
amidst, so it looks good, right? When you come out and you're holding spaces for women of color and you're saying of all of these things that you're going to do, and you're meeting doulas and you're asking us to come and sit down with you, and then we don't hear from you or anything about what we discussed when we sat down face to face, a few weeks ago. And so really do the work that is needed. Putting in the policies that are needed, making sure that there are resources that are legit and are funded well so that they can continue because it's needed.
Mhm.
Um, these things, please, absolutely
Yes.
necessary.
Well, that's 100% on the mark, and when we all, those of us watching, are thinking about what we can do, this is really how we can do. I mean, we put people in office.
Mhm,
To Shay's point, it shouldn't be that they're rallying around these issues prior to getting into office. We need to make sure that these issues are a priority throughout their tenure and their time,
yeah,
and they work for us, as I always say. So, we need to remind them that these issues are important to us and that they need to keep them at the forefront of their voting
yeah,
and their advocacy and our advocacy to keep it there for them for sure. And you also touched on another important piece that I just want to echo, and is really that we need to see, people need to see faces that look like them, when they're, you know, voting, so people that they're voting for, when they are going into, healthcare institutions, at every level, at every space,
mhm,
in our education system, all these places. I'm a social worker by training. We recently, here in New Jersey, there was, finally some real attention put to the fact that some of the social work licensing exams are really racist and difficult for anyone of color to be able to pass. And so when you look at the
mhm,
numbers of how we don't have as many social workers from communities of color in the field, that there's a direct link there. And so all of those pieces have to be looked at. And again, they're only going to be looked at is, if all of us,
mhm,
no matter, how you identify, but especially those of us with privilege who are in, power spaces, make sure that these conversations are a priority, and that, we push forward because this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable.
mhm,
And we do need, and I can say this as, being a mother, again, it couldn't be a more vulnerable time, to have so much happening within your body changing, and at the same time externally in your world changing. And it's a time that you need that it's an, that alone is enough to focus on. The layers and issues that Shay is sharing with us are, so unto their own. That's a lot of stress for a mother to carry and to pass along the child that she's growing, that racial trauma, to be carrying that as well.
mhm,
So, this needs to be a priority for all of us to make these shifts.
definitely. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for being here today and sharing, the work that you're doing. Um, I want to make sure that our viewers know you can connect with Shay. She has a Facebook and an Instagram account. We have that here
Okay.
so that you can link to it. She also has a website where you can learn more about her work as well. She is very linked to a lot of these statewide important initiatives that are happening in this space. So, by connecting with her, you're not only learning about her work, whether it's for someone, that could be utilizing it, but you can connect with her to support her in that advocacy space, even if you don't, personally need the service for sure. But it's great to learn about the advocacy you're doing, the work you're doing, how you came to it. It's very generous of you to share, all of that detail. And we do look forward to staying in touch with you and learning more about what you're doing over time.
I look forward to it as well. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your time and your platform.
Thank you. And to our viewers, we hope that you have a great day. We also hope that you, keep in mind that part of YWTV and this Share the Might Now platform is you have a part in it too. Share the story that you're just, this, wonderful human being that we've just met. Please amplify what she shared with us, integrate it into a conversation that you're having today. If there's someone you think that could benefit from the work that she's doing, please make that connection and link for them. Following someone on social media is a great way not only to see what they're doing, but to push it out in your platform as well and amplify their reach. When we talk about ways that we can support, especially for those of us, who are white, ways that we can support our non-white communities. This is it. This is it. Stepping in and supporting, very actively. So we do encourage you to do that. And we have more YWTV coming. We hope you join us tomorrow for and I think I can safely say that you and Marla, although, come from different worlds, live in a very
Mhm.
similar kind of holistic space. So Marla Sachs is going to join us.
Right.
She's of the Radiant Woman. And so we'll be ending the week uh, really with her glow, because she's definitely someone who glows, which I know is that inner glow. And Shay
Mhm.
clearly has that inner glow too. I know I'm been basking in it for the last 32 minutes as we've been chatting. So we hope you join us tomorrow so that you can, finish your week with us there as well. Everyone have a great day. And Shay, thank you so much for sharing your story. And we look forward to following you and what you're working on.
Yes, thank you.
Bye, everyone.